Okay, good afternoon. It is a true honor to have the presence today of Professor Felix Quiroz, a prominent researcher who has dedicated part of his career to the historical and artistic study of the Santo Domingo de Guzman Church, located in the picturesque town of Parita. His works give us a deep insight not only into the cultural richness of his heritage, but also into its importance in the development of the region's historical identity. Professor Quiroz, thank you very much for joining us. In this interview, we are really excited to learn more about your findings and what this study means for the community and Panamanian religious art.
Buenas tardes, es un verdadero honor contar hoy con la presencia del profesor Félix Quiroz, destacado investigador quien ha dedicado parte de su carrera al estudio histórico y artístico de la iglesia Santo Domingo de Guzmán, ubicado en el pintoresco pueblo de Parita. Su trabajo nos brinda una visión profunda no solo de la riqueza cultural de este patrimonio, sino también de su importancia en el desarrollo de la identidad histórica de la región. Profesor Quiroz, muchas gracias por acompañarnos en esta entrevista. Nos entusiasma aprender más sobre sus hallazgos y lo que este estudio significa para la comunidad y el arte religioso panameño. Can you provide a brief history of the Santo Domingo de Guzmán Church in Parita? ¿Podría proporcionarnos una breve historia de la iglesia de Santo Domingo de Guzmán en Parita?
La iglesia, como comenté al principio, cuando se establecieron las primeras reducciones indígenas, la misión que había en esta área de Santa Elena de Parita, antes llamado Santa Elena, después se llamó Santo Domingo, era empezar el proceso de evangelización.
The mission in Santa Elena de Parita began evangelization when the first indigenous productions were established. Initially, the congregation worshipped in improved buildings, but later a wooden church was built. This church was constructed on a raised ground when the town was refounded, about 5 kilometers from the concurrent Rio Parita, dating from 1650 to 1700.
Okay.
The mission in Santa Elena de
What
Parita began
architectural style
evangelization
characterizes
when the
the
first
church, and
indigenous
how does it
productions were
reflect the era
established.
in which it was
Initially,
built?
the
¿Qué
congregation
estilo
worshipped in
arquitectónico
improved
caracteriza a la iglesia
buildings.
y cómo refleja la época en que fue construida?
La mayoría de los retablos que vieron en la presentación y la forma en que es construido el templo es de la influencia del barroco, totalmente, del siglo XVIII.
The majority of the altarpieces and their construction are influenced by the Baroque style of the 18th century. However, the neoclassical styles of the 19th century are evidenced in later additions to the church. Neoclassicism, inspired by Roman and Greek influences, is reflected in the altarpieces and sculpture, representing a living devotion for the people of Parita. This profound devotion is also mirrored in their artwork. The local festival further illustrates this devotion. Santo Domingo de Guzman, in honor of the patron saint and his image. The Virgin of Rosary, celebrated with the Venerate Marian sculpture, and Holy Weeks with its image, some of which are presented today.
Buenas tardes, profesor.
The majority of the altarpieces and their construction are influenced by the Baroque style of the 18th.
Are there any significant historical event associated with the church that you can share? ¿Hay algún evento histórico significativo asociado con la iglesia que pueda compartir?
Parita es un pueblo que la mayoría de sus fiestas populares trascienden de las fiestas religiosas.
The church closely links all religious events in Parita. In this town, the most popular festival originates from the shore, so all cultural expressions are associated with these devotions, sculptures, and art pieces. Virtually all popular festivities stem from religious patterns. An example is the celebration of Corpus Christi, which is now part of World Heritage. In Parita, dances symbolize the celebration dedicated to the Blessing Sacrament, an ecclesiastical celebration that has been celebrated here since the 18th century. This illustrated the influence of the Parita shore not only on the imagined and artistic pieces but also on the devotion of the community. The next question is, how has the church contributed to the local community throughout its history? ¿Cómo ha contribuido la iglesia a la comunidad local a lo largo de su historia?
La iglesia en Parita, como comenté hace un rato, sigue siendo parte medular de la vida del pueblo. No tengo que...
The Church of Parita remains a fundamental part of the town life. Throughout the 20th century and up to the present day, the church has carried out evangelization and catechesis process on education. At one point, the church also offered musical training to small groups of children who, thanks to instrument donations, learned to play the violin and the guitar. Through religious activities, a cultural identity was formed in the town, as young people attended this celebration from an early age, such as Corpus Christi, with its dances or activities related to Holy Week. These events brought culture and education to the youth and children of Parita. In the various festivities, the church is evident in the community. The Church of
Good
Parita
afternoon,
remains
Mr.
a
Tello.
fundamental
My name is
part
Jonathan
of the
Fu.
town life.
Buenas tardes,
Throughout
Professor
the
Tello.
20th
Mi nombre es
century
Jonathan Fu.
and up
Who were the key figures involved in the construction and design of the church? ¿Quiénes fueron las figuras clave involucradas en la construcción y diseño de la iglesia?
No tenemos referencia escrita de nombres en específico de quiénes fueron los ingenieros o arquitectos que construyeron la iglesia durante ese periodo de la colonia. Sabemos de que es un ingenio netamente español.
The answer number 4. The professor says, we don't have any written reference to the specific names of the engineers or architects who built the church during the colonial period. We know that it's a purely Spanish invention to do the type of construction, but we do not currently have the names of the architects and engineers who were in the charter of work, which, as I mentioned, was built between the end of the 17th century and the end of the 18th century. What are some notable artistic elements of decoration
we don't
found
have
within
any
the church?
written reference to the
¿Cuáles
specific
son
names
algunos
of the
elementos
engineers
artísticos
or
o
architects who
decoraciones
built
notables
the
que
church
se
during the
encuentran dentro de
colonial
la
period?
iglesia?
We know that it
Los elementos más comunes en los retablos, por ejemplo, las columnas de tipo salomónico.
The answer number 6. The professor says, in the altar pieces, for example, in the Solomonic types columns, there are thin columns with great vines and acanthus leaves painted in gold. We find that in several altar pieces in the church, for example, that of Santo Cristo, San Jose, and the Virgin de las Mercedes, to mention a few. Another iconographic reference is the Maria Images, both in painting and sculpture. Sculptures of both images of dressed. The reference, for example, to the Immaculada Concepcion, the Virgin of the Rosary, the Virgin of Mercy, and the Virgin of the Carmen, which are carved back of, or imagine also that dress that the one wear in the altarpiece of Calvary as Our Lady of Salute, or currently known as a Dolorosa. These are some of the artistic representations that are one most observed within the Church of Parita. Another element is the reproduction of many grape vines in the carving of the columns, symbolizing the vineyard from which the wind comes and making religious reference to the blood of Christ and the wine of consecration. These are elements that are often seen in the altarpieces inside the church.
Good
The answer
evening, Mr.
number
Tello.
6.
My name is
The
Delany.
professor
Buenas
says
noches,
in
Profesor
the
Tello. Mi
altarpiece.
nombre es Delany. How does the cross artwork reflects the cultural influence of the religion? ¿Cómo refleja el arte de la iglesia las influencias culturales de la región?
Bueno, la influencia artística, vuelvo y repito, está en las representaciones devotas del pueblo. Los cuadros, los retablos, las imágenes, en su mayoría fueron sufragadas por cofradías, que las cofradías estaban formadas por familias del siglo XVIII y XIX, de la época colonial. Como esa devoción.
The paintings, the altarpieces, the images were mostly paid for by the Brotherhood. That the Brotherhood was made up of families from the 18th and 19th century of the colonial era. For example, the Virgin of the Rosary, of the Immaculate Conception, the Holy Christ, the Virgin of Carmen, to name a few examples. You can see a religious ceremony. All the iconography of the church. If you come to religious festival in Parita, you will find its artistic representation because it reminds its force at some point in the year. The paintings,
Are there
the
any unique
altarpieces, the
symbols or
images were
motifs
mostly
used
paid
to
for
the
by
church
the
design?
Brotherhood.
¿Hay
That the
símbolos
Brotherhood
o
was made
motivos
up
únicos
of families
utilizados en el
from the
diseño de la iglesia?
18th and 19th century
Diseños
of the
únicos,
colonial
yo diría
era.
que no,
For example, the
porque
Virgin
el
of the
diseño
Rosary,
único
of the
es algo
Immaculate
que es
Conception, the Holy.
netamente de origen.
Well, a
Estas
unique designs, I go say no, because a unique design is something that is purely original. They are representation of the Baroque influence, by the artistic style influenced by the history of the science or the history of the gospel. The elements they have are typical of the religion representation that exists.
Ok,
Gracias.
buenas tardes, profesor. Le habla Víctor Correa y yo le haré la siguiente pregunta. Ok. How has the church been preserved or restored over the years? ¿Cómo ha sido preservada o restaurada la iglesia a lo largo de estos años?
Bueno, la iglesia ha tenido varios procesos de restauración desde principios del siglo XX, cuando fue declarada patrimonio histórico. Bueno, la iglesia ha tenido.
The church has had several restoration processes since the beginning of the 20th century when it was declared historical heritage. The restoration began also in the 30s, 40s, 60s. More restorations were made. Is that to talk about the restorations, we would have to make a conference to just talk about this, because it is a property that between ceiling, floor, sculptures, and altarpiece, including the images, has been a rescue and conservation process of the entire last century, and recently, between 2019 and 2022 or 23, still the church is in the process of restoration, especially the altarpieces images. The church has had several restoration processes since the beginning of the 20th century when it was declared historical heritage. ¿Qué papel juega la iglesia, pues, Santo Domingo de Guzmán en las prácticas religiosas locales, pues, que se practican hoy en día?
prácticamente juegan un papel, yo diría, muy fundamental, principal.
It practically plays a very fundamental role. The whole religious column of the people is born from the patriot devotion of Santo Domingo, who are popular for the bullfights. They are born from that devotion to Santo Domingo de Guzman. Also, the Holy Week, born from here, better said, all traditional patrons are born from the devotion of the people to celebrate or show respect for the Gospels that the Passion of Christ narrates in this case.
Thank you, Professor.
Plays a very fundamental
I have
role.
another
The
question.
whole
How
religious
do
column
visitors
of the
typically
people is
respond to the
born
church's
from the
historical
patriot
and
devotion.
artistic significance? ¿Cómo responden típicamente los visitantes ante la importancia histórica y artística de la iglesia?
La iglesia en los últimos años ha tenido una aceptación muy considerable. Cuando se llevó a cabo la JMJ, muchos extranjeros vinieron a Parita solo a ver la iglesia.
The church in recent years has had a very considerable acceptance. When the JMJ was held, many foreigners came to Parita just to see the church. It is clear that comparing it with the churches of the Europe, there is a very large gap because of the greater antique that there is in the urban Europe of the colony. They called the attention of when the visitors arrive, and not only for the value of the church is not only in the altarpieces and the images that the museum. It is also when it comes with everything that we talked about a while ago that transcends the church. The church
Thank you. Are there any challenges the church faces regarding maintenance or preservation? ¿Existen desafíos que enfrenten la iglesia en cuanto a mantenimiento o preservación?
Si bien es cierto, la iglesia ha pasado en los últimos años por restauraciones, todavía hay falencias dentro de la iglesia que hay que corregir. Como el mismo.
While it is true that the church has undergone restoration in recent years, there are still deficiencies within the church that need to be corrected, such as the use that the Catholic Church gives it. That is one of the things that the Catholic Church obviously protects. It's to protect these buildings, but we know that sometimes not all the priests who come have that ideology of conservation. Others have a bad ideology of innovation, and in innovation, sometimes the heritage that we have is put at risk. That is one of the things that is coming, which is the restructuring of the church bell. Yes, while it is true that the roof has already been restored, some images have been restored. Now what is needed, for example, is the bell, the church towel, which needs restoration, and some other elements that are from religious festivals. While it is
Thank
true
you,
that the
Professor
church
Quiroz.
has
Good
undergone
evening. My name is
restoration
Kevin
in
Garcia.
recent years,
Muchas
there are
gracias,
still
Profesor Quiroz.
deficiencies within
Mi
the
nombre es
church
Kevin
that need to be
Garcia.
corrected, such as the use that the
What impact has the church had on the identity of Parita as a community? ¿Qué impacto ha tenido la iglesia en la identidad de Parita como comunidad?
Bueno, la identidad del pueblo es netamente religiosa.
The identity of the people is purely religious. The cultural parts of this Pariteño people comes out the church. Patronal festivals and celebrations, processions, all of these manifestations that takes place in the church is born from the historical influence represented in these works of art that you are seeing there.
Thank you, Professor. The next one. Gracias, Profesor. La siguiente. How do you envision the future of the Santo Domingo de Guzman Church in the coming years? ¿Cómo imagina usted el futuro de la iglesia de Santo Domingo de Guzmán en los próximos años?
La iglesia de Parita en los últimos años ha pasado por proceso de restauración, lo que nos anima porque consideramos que por lo menos vamos a dejarle algo a la futura generación.
The Parita Church has undergone a restoration process, which encourage us because we believe that at least we leave something to the future generation. The challenge is to see if future generations who knows that we live in a digital social age with very changing mentality will also have the capacity to leave a structure like this to their children and to their grandchildren. Generations until today that has fulfilled, although the church still has many needs, as I said. The bell tower, unfortunately, the Panamanian state has a budget where you can invest every year in preserving something. But at least with what has been done, we believe that up to this point, we have left something materially and immaterially speaking. We consider that we are leaving a good legacy for future generations.
Thank you, Professor Quiroz, for your insightful presentation on the Iglesia de Parita and its artistic history. Your expertise has enriched our understanding of this cultural gem, and we deeply appreciate the way you brought us the historical and artistic significance to life. Muchas gracias, Profesor Quiroz, por su presentación tan enriquecedora sobre la Iglesia de Parita y su historia artística, su conocimiento ha ampliado nuestra comprensión de este tesoro cultural y apreciamos profundamente la manera en que trajo a la vida el significado histórico y artístico de esta hermosa iglesia. También queremos expresar, pues admiramos su dedicación a la preservación y difusión de esta historia. Esperamos seguir aprendiendo más de usted y gracias nuevamente por permitirnos este espacio.